What's up, guys? It's Drac, and against everybody's better judgment, they keep making new Ultra Blasters. Let's talk about them. So the name of this blaster might not be readily apparent. Looking at the first overview of the package, this is the Ultra Strike. Now the Ultra Strike is kind of like an Ultra Strife, and if that starts getting a little tongue twisty, don't mind that it's an Ultra Strike with AccuStrike darts. That's of course Ultra AccuStrike because the regular Ultra darts were quite poor in terms of all of the things that they claim to do, and then the AccuStrike ones fix some of the issues by being slightly more accurate, but of course are neither more durable nor higher range or higher performance than your average half-length foam flinging device of any form or fashion. All personal biases aside, let's get it outside of the box. Let's take a look at it aesthetically. Kicking us off back to front, we've got the stock. The stock, of course, has two sling point attachments, this one being dedicated and this one being kind of a pseudo sling point attachment. Of note, the stock has one trick, which is that if you happen to have multiple Ultra magazines, a la original long shot, you can store your second one in the back, pop out like that, in like that for a rapid reload. Now, as we move forward, you've got the grip itself, an oddly straight up and down grip, although not an entirely uncomfortable one. The confusing thing is that from Ultra, which is supposed to be a blaster category that's high performance and a higher age group, you would assume people have larger hands, and this is one of the smallest rev triggers I have ever seen. It's almost uncomfortably small. It's smaller than a Strife one, which is a little crazy when you think about it. I can actually only fit about half of my middle finger, which is the finger that I use to rev on it. Now luckily, it's got a little hook there, so you can get in there. Moving forward, you've got this pop-up sight. This is built into the blaster, although it's held in with one screw, which means that you could theoretically remove it if you wanted to. When it's flat, it actually fits into the ID of the blaster very comfortably. You can see that leads in, and the knurling on it almost looks like it's more tack rail, even though it certainly is not. That pops up like this, and of course can't go any further back because it would impact the rail itself. Which leads us into, this thing has three, count them, 3 N-Strike tactical rails. You've got one in the back with this weird kind of tail coming off the back. I don't understand that. Then you've got one up front and then one down here. Now there's a built-in kind of AFG area here for you to hook in there and like that. And that's honestly pretty good because it keeps you out of the mag well. And it's not a bad AFG, it's a little thick. The overall blaster, of course, is a lot thicker than your average N-Strike blaster. Maybe not a lot, but definitely a little bit. And having a built-in overmolded kind of grip like that lends itself to it. And then you've got this super large faux barrel. This is an optional thing, but I'll be reviewing the blaster with it. It adds barrel drag, it comes in the package. Once you click it in, it has teeth so that it clicks in, and now it won't come out. It's an incredibly secure bond, but it's definitely not coming out of there. If you were going to use this in any sort of performance capacity, if you have a club that allows you to use Ultra, or if you feel like using Ultra has any merits whatsoever, you might want to not put the barrel attachment on, as it just gives it an extra nose. It's very silly. It doesn't really do much for the product itself. There's two more sling point attachments here in the grip, and then one dedicated one up here in the front. Lots of places to do that. Then you've got the traditional metallic, although this is not gold. It's kind of more of a crimson-y for the Ultra logo on top. I guess we're no longer advertising ourselves as the gold standard when it's so incredibly clear that they're just not. But then you've got paint on this side saying Strike, and then if you liked all of those features on the back side here, you've got none of that. You have the entirety of the warming label in multiple languages, as well as the battery door. This thing takes 6 AA's. Keep that in mind. You're going to burn through them pretty quick, so make sure that you have either rechargeables or a lot of them. And then the Ultra logo on this side does not have the electroplated kind of metallic paint on it because they didn't have to. So as far as firing the blaster goes, again, shouldering is comfortable. The grip is pretty decent. If you're a larger foam flinger, with the exception of that itty bitty rev switch, I actually think that this is a pretty good shell. And why wouldn't it be? It's basically a rapid strike in terms of its overall ergo and design. Now, it does not have, this stock is both permanent, it's built into the blaster, and it's not modular in any sort of way. You can't shrink it or extend it. You have a fixed stock on your strike. Now, firing the blaster is going to come in the form of semi-auto shots out of this magazine. This is an Ultra magazine holding the polypropylene Ultra darts, which again, I'm just not a big fan of this ammo for a litany of different reasons. We won't go into them. I am surprised that Hasbro hasn't started double stacking them, as the polyprop is the only NERF dart thus far that has enough integrity squish-wise that theoretically they could get away with making a double stacked magazine of these. It's just interesting, and if they choose to perpetuate the line, I would be surprised if we don't see that in the future. But firing, a very crisp kind of trigger response, and that's partially because it does have to overcome built-in dart DRM, where there's like a lock that it clicks into the dart, and then that gives you some mechanical feedback, and then there's the thrower arm where it goes click, click. And it does feel good. Again, this trigger is also very small. I don't know why the blaster is oversized in some ways, but the control suite from the mag release to the trigger and the rev switch are all just kind of wee. I don't know if that's going to be readily apparent, but if you look in there, you could see that like my finger barely fits on the trigger, and then it's got the cutaway down below. So if you have less thin fingers than I do, this is going to be a pretty cramped trigger well for you. However, given the age range that this is being marketed to, that shouldn't be a problem most of the time. I think that the sight picture is a little silly. I don't know what the purpose of it is, because it doesn't really have a sight picture. It just kind of gives you a pop-up to frame things in. There's no like reticle or anything in there. So overall, while the blaster is clearly overpriced twice over, once for just being a name brand Nerf blaster and then twice for being the premium Ultra package, you're $45 in it to have a 10-round Strife equivalent in the Ultra lineup. Let's go outside, let's put it over the chronograph, and let's see if that's truly worth double the dollars. All right guys, so we're out here with the Ultra Strike. We're gonna be kind of conservative, putting 4 or 5 over the chronograph here, just because with darts that are 50 cents a pop, I don't want to lose any of them. I'm going to throw them downrange at the target and see kind of how accurate our AccuStrike Ultra is. But this is, as far as precision semi-auto flywheel shooting goes in the Ultra line, about as good as it gets. Again, I equate this to being the Strife just plus added expense. So hopefully we get some decent FPS out of it. Credit where credit is due. That's 101, 102, 101, 102-ish. That's high FPS. Hopefully that translates really well to overall range, but more to the point, it's incredibly consistent, which is very, very unusual for a stock blaster off the shelf, and very, very cool to see. So it looks like in whatever capacity they've dialed in the flywheel cage in there, they've done a pretty decent job. It's got a funky kind of dart flap thing in front of it. I haven't taken one of these apart yet because no one has convinced me to make a mod guide for an Ultra Blaster in a while, but certainly far more consistent than the Ultra one. We've come a long way. Let's target is about 40, 45 feet away with angled shots. Hopefully we can and by the time we walked it up, I think that we were there, but we are officially out of darts, which means that there were only 8 in this magazine instead of 10. However, that's the overall take. I mean, those darts flew straight, or as straight as any Hasbro ammo has. I think that the flat cap is doing a lot for them. And if you're looking for like plinking or target shooting in a standard size basement, I think that this is an okay option, particularly if you're not a modder and if you want to use alkalines. For 6 AA batteries, this guy will give you 100 FPS. It looks reasonably dialed in. You're just going to be spending a lot of money on extra ammo as you lose darts or break darts, which is far more of a concern with Ultra than it is with something like Elite, where the darts are far more resilient to impact and wear. However, that's just my take on it. I think that this is an okay pickup if you see it on sale, if for no reason other than the shell. This has, I think, a lot of potential for conversion. However, I think that the first thing that has to go is obviously going to be this nose, and I would snap it off like this, but I actually might do something with the shell in the future, which means I should not do that, and I'll take it out by dissecting the blaster and pulling it off it that way. But that's my take on the Ultra Strike. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below.